Hello, everyone, and welcome to A Mighty Blaze. I'm Jenna Paone, and today our Celebrity Author Spotlight series is so exciting. I am so pleased to introduce you to Hank Phillippi Ryan, who is going to be interviewing Lis Wiehl. We're so thrilled to have you here, ladies. Thank you for being here. Great to be here. Thanks. I'm going to give a brief introduction of both of these fabulous authors who really do not need any introductions, but we're going to give those to them anyways. And then we're going to let them take over the conversation and entertain you all. First up, we have Hank Phillippi Ryan. Hank Phillippi Ryan has been called all of the best adjectives, which is pretty much the greatest way to start a bio that I've ever heard. Explosive, exciting, masterful. Oh, isn't that great? Hank is the on-air investigative reporter for Boston's WHDH-TV. She's won 36 Emmys, no big deal, and dozens more journalism honors. A nationally best-selling author of 11 mysteries, Ryan is also an award winner in her second profession, with 5 Agathas, 3 Anthonys, 2 McCavities, the Daphne, and for her book, The Other Woman, the coveted Mary Higgins Clark Award. Critics call her a master of suspense and a superb and gifted storyteller, and she is the only author to have won the Agatha in 4 different categories: Best First, Best Novel, Best Short Story, and Best Nonfiction. Hank's newest book is The Murder List, which was Amazon's #1 best-selling legal thriller. New York Times bestseller Liv Constantine calls it an exhilarating thrill ride. AJ Finn says exciting, explosive, relentless. B.A. Paris says it's her best yet. It is now a nominee for both the Agatha Award and the Mary Higgins Clark Award. And there it is, and there's Hank. Thank you, Hank, and welcome.
My pleasure. I love that. People sometimes say, oh, here's someone who needs no introduction. And I think, yes, I do. You know.
Well, that's always the person like you who has the 10-page bio that you can't even list all the awards because there's too many.
I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah. And next up, we have Lis Wiehl. Lis Wiehl is a New York Times bestselling author of fiction and nonfiction books and is a legal analyst. She is the author of 18 books. Oh my gosh, you women today are just, this is ridiculous. After working at NBC News and the National Public Radio's All Things Considered, Wiehl moved to the Fox News Channel, where she served as a legal analyst and reporter for over 15 years. She has appeared on numerous FNC shows and has been a reporter for or interviewed on NPR, CNN, and other media. Her latest book, Hunting the Unabomber, uses new primary sources and exclusive interviews to reconstruct the white-knuckle search for and capture of the brilliant but criminally insane Kaczynski. Oh my gosh, there it is. Thank you so much for being here, Lis.
Thank you so much for having me on the Mighty Blaze. There you go, Hank.
We're just thrilled to have you both. You guys are pros. We just want to let you take over this conversation and do what you do best. So without any more ado from me, I am going to let you take it away. Thank you so much, Hank.
Thank you. Thank you. This is so much fun to be here, and I'm so pleased to see you all here today. I wish we could do this in person, and I promise you someday we actually will, and that will be quite the party, which I am really looking forward to. So, Lis, how are you? How are you doing? How are you handling this?
I adore you.
And
I'm doing fine. Thank goodness. I'm healthy. I'm writing away. I'm so pleased at the launch of the Unabomber. Who knew when I was writing this? The book took about 2 years in all told, from writing and research, that it would be published. I mean, we knew the publishing date long before, this was many weeks, months in advance, that we'd be publishing during a pandemic. But, that's what it is. And it's sort of an historical event. I hope this is my only book that will be published during a pandemic.
Oh my goodness. Yes, we do. Well,
yes,
the book is terrific. And I want to ask you how you're handling this personally, your personal and family life and your writing life during the pandemic, and also what the Mighty Blaze is here for, launching a book during the pandemic. Did this gradually dawn on you that, oh my goodness, this is something that it's hard enough to launch a book in real life, but
Right.
with this complete change of our universe. How did you deal with that sort of emotionally and professionally?
Well, first of all, thank you for asking. I mean, that's a very touching question for you to ask. First off, I have two children, and they are obviously the light of my lives. My daughter's birthday is today, and yeah, and both are healthy, and they're well, and they have jobs. So I'm very grateful about that. And that's first and primary. And I'm healthy. And so from an emotional standpoint, and I'm really, really grateful. Although I'm so saddened, of course, as to everything that's happening around us and why we're in this position right now. As far as publishing a book in this environment, as difficult as it is to be, putting, as I said, I've been putting all this work, and here now it's, oh my gosh, I've got to publish a book, and I can't get on the usual, ride of shows and television shows, which is sort of the natural thing to do. On the other side of that, look at how a mighty blaze has grown from this need for writers and readers to get together and lift each other up and support each other. Look at us, Hank. I mean, we've known each other on the phone and via email and talking and supporting each other for years. But here we are doing an interview in real time and talking about it. And that's something to be cherished right now, I think.
Well, I
And
agree that it's part of what we have to look
yeah,
at optimistically. That,
yes,
that this is, we have to look at it as a step on the path. It's the rockiest step that
absolutely.
anybody ever could have imagined. But for all of people who are writing now and launching books now, it's so precarious. And sometimes it must feel a little bit, I want to say, self-centered to think, oh, my book, my book, my book. But yet the world goes on and reading goes on, and what you're
Yes.
writing is important, and what you are sharing is important, no matter sort of what's going on. We have to, it's a way of focusing on our normalcy. Are you doing that?
Well, don't you think even reading, let's take it from the reader standpoint, and I'll go to the writer standpoint. Don't you think reading is as important or more important now than ever before? I mean, reading one thing, the news is ever more important, of course, to keep track of what's going on, but reading about other things than the news, the world, history, mystery, to get us out of what's around us, for our mental health, if nothing else. History, so that we don't repeat the mistakes of the past. History, so we learn. These are all even more important, I would argue, than ever before. For me personally, writing is my passion, it's my craft. I need to be writing. I need to keep the discipline of writing, to keep that and to keep going, for my mental health as much as anything else. And I do it. I keep going. And for us writers, Hank, and I'll let you speak to it as much as me, that discipline, that keeping of going of ideas, because of course, as a writer, that's all in our head. We create these worlds in our head. We create these characters that come alive in our head. I mean, I've got characters from my mystery books that are just lining up out there wanting pizza and like dinner and like what's going on and where, why are we stalled why won't you let us come out now? Why did you tell us to go away for half an hour and be quiet? They want to be brought alive and kept going. And that's important as much in this time as it is in any. And we can keep that going when we're in a pandemic, when we're in our study, as I am now, or when we go back to our quote unquote normal life, whenever that's going to resume.
I mean, it's interesting because there is a sense of a normalcy that we have some control over, unlike everything else in the world. Our reading and our writing, as much as is something that we do have charge of in a way. I mean, I think that, I can confess that When this started, I thought, well, I'm really going to get a lot done. I'm going to be so organized, and I'm going to read everything. I'm going to write everything. And that I failed miserably at that. And I am sort of climbing my way back into writing. I have a book due in August, and yes, editors, it will be done. I promise you it will. My 13th book will be done. But I think we have to be kind to ourselves a little bit and just not say, oh, I failed, but say, I'm doing this. I'm on the path. I'm on the writing path. I'm on the reading path. And, talk about history, your book, I mean, your combination of your background as a federal prosecutor and as a lawyer and as a legal commentator and as a journalist, and as a storyteller, first and foremost, all that sort of comes together in this Hunting the Unabomber, and your sense of history, talking about learning from our past mistakes. Talk a little bit about this book briefly, so people know. I mean, this book just launched a couple of days ago. You should be jet setting around the country. So we'll jet set you on a mighty blaze.
There we go.
Tell us a little bit about this book.
Well, yeah, in Hunting the Unabomber, I mean, I set out, I thought it was such an interesting subject, right? This Unabomber that really terrorized the country for almost 2 decades. This man that all we knew him was, this iconic figure of the man in the sunglasses and mustache. That this picture that went around for 2 decades almost, and then was finally caught in a lone cabin in Montana. These are just some images that people might have. A manifesto they might remember that was printed in the New York Times, bombs that were set off. But they don't know about the 2-decade-long search that the FBI went for. By the way, this was a 2-decade-long search, the longest manhunt that the FBI has ever had to date. I found an FBI agent who had long since retired up in New Hampshire, and he was the leader of the task force, in the Unabomb task force. He had seen a series on television, a discovery series, a docu-series. Some of those are sometimes overblown and made sexy. Anyway, he said, this discovery series really got it wrong, and in some fundamental ways that I think anyone watching it will have misread the American public and really done a disservice to that piece of history. And I said to him, I said, well, look, I can set the record straight, but I need your help. I mean, you've got to open up all your records, all the past, everything, all the documentation, and lead me to other primary sources.
But as a journalist and as an attorney, that you just must have been rubbing your hands.
Oh, I was.
I mean, what a treasure that was.
Oh my gosh. And that was a mighty ask of any former FBI agent, because they don't usually like to, they like to keep things back.
What was his reasoning? What did he tell you?
He said, because he had no love for Kaczynski, obviously, but he said this is a major piece of American history. He's really the first domestic terrorist that this country really knows. He changed the way the FBI does their hunts, which I didn't know at the time. I didn't know the backstory that I know now. He changed a lot of the way that we now do hunts for terrorists in this country. I didn't know any of that. And he said, did you know, by the way, that we almost shut down the whole thing? And I said, no. I mean, there were so many background things that I didn't know that were critical and have relevancy now. And I said, let's take this journey. And it was a huge ask, because he, at the time, was dying of cancer. So he only had a few months left.
And this is also, I mean, for you, such a responsibility, because you're creating, as a journalist, creating the real history of what happened with a source that knows that he's giving you this opportunity to let us know what really happened through the eyes of really the only person who really does know, with the voice of someone who is prepared to make that public. That must have been such a responsibility, such a task.
Absolutely. And then he was the key to letting me into other sources that wouldn't normally have talked to me, but because Patrick Webb, the agent, said, talk to her. She's a former federal prosecutor. I had all the creds, former federal prosecutor. Her dad was an FBI agent. Her granddad was a federal prosecutor as well. So I had the federal family key to kind of let me in. You know, I had those credentials. I wasn't just another journalist off the street. So with that, I gained his trust and their trust, and that began that 2-year-long journey.
I mean, it's such a triumph. The book
Amazing.
is riveting and reads like a crime thriller. I mean, it is
Yes.
a crime thriller. I mean, it's just so well done and so infinitely well researched. And you worked with Lisa Pulitzer on
Who
it.
was a fabulous researcher as well.
Fabulous researcher.
Yes.
You know, it's interesting as an author of crime fiction and as a journalist, with my husband a criminal defense attorney, so you and I should talk.
Exactly.
The murder list, it's interesting because of course the murder list is about the murder list. And someone said to me once, why do you, and the question for you too, you know, why with all the terrible things in the world, why do you write about crime? Why are you writing about this terrible stuff? And I said, you know, I don't feel as if I write about crime. I feel as if I write about justice.
Exactly.
And that's what I'm going for in this. It's how do we come to the truth? How do we know reality? I mean, a prosecutor, I mean, the whole key of the murder list is, you know, the prosecution is doing its job to protect the public. And the defense attorney is doing their job to protect an individual's rights. And that balance is left for us, the jury. And that is a powerful thing. That's a powerful story. And I always feel as if I can tell that story and illuminate that search for justice. That's what I'm trying to do in my fiction. And that's what you're trying to do and do so well in your nonfiction.
You are absolutely 100% right. It's a story about justice, seeking justice, and how we get to justice, because so many injustices are done. So what is the process to get to justice? Because it's often not done. And we see that in, you know, when people are wrongfully convicted and when there are books written about that. But in Murder List, same thing. In this, you can see it in fiction, and I've written fiction as well. It's the same exact thing. Crime is sort of the overlay,
Yes.
right, of the criminal justice system. That's what it is called. But we're writing about how do we finally get to a point of justice. And it's an icky way. It's a gory, icky way to get
And yet
there.
the only way. I mean, it is the only way, but I think what we're both trying to do, interestingly, and in such different ways and in such similar ways, is to get people to look at the world a different way, to think about justice in a different way, and to think about that responsibility and that balance in a different way by weaving a story about it. And that is such a powerful thing. Did you always want to be a writer?
Yeah, well, yes, I grew up with my mother immigrated from Denmark, and she got a PhD in English, her second language, right? So, and then my dad, as I said, was an FBI agent, then a federal prosecutor. And the one thing about growing up was we had to have, you know, dinner together at home. So at home, it was always stories about my FBI federal prosecutor dad talking about the bad guys, and my mom correcting my English. And, you know, so
Great.
I think I grew up with Nancy Drew and the Hardy Boys and all that. And I was Encyclopedia Brown. I was always trying to really figure out the mysteries. I mean, this is no joke. So I think, yeah. And then I became a federal prosecutor myself. So I think I was sort of like doomed.
I don't see it as doomed. I mean, I grew up in rural Indiana. So rural that you couldn't see another house from our house. And my sister and I used to ride our ponies to the library and read up in the hayloft of the barn behind our house.
I love it.
I know, and that's where I read Sherlock Holmes.
Yeah, Sherlock Holmes.
Drew, and then Agatha Christie.
Agatha Christie, yeah.
And I knew even then, as a kid, that I wanted to either be a mystery writer or a detective. I thought maybe it'd be cooler to be Sherlock Holmes than to write about Sherlock Holmes. So as an investigative reporter and as a crime fiction writer, you know, I sort of got to do both things. When you, I think we're completely running out of time. This is
we just
take your time, ladies. This is so wonderful. This is so great to hear you two talk about all of this. And you know, it's so interesting because you do have such overlap. So please continue.
Oh, okay, good.
Okay.
That was
But
good.
I do want to know
Yeah.
where, when you, I mean, you've written about Charles Manson, and you've also written wonderful suspense thrillers about the news business. How do you overlay your life as a woman, as a writer, as a journalist, as a lawyer, on your decision making on what to write, on how far to go in your writing, about what matters and what doesn't matter, for you to translate from your real life into your work?
Oh, it's so fun. I mean, with my mysteries, the protagonists, you know, well, with my Triple Threat, which was my first mystery series, there was a federal prosecutor, a FBI agent, and a TV reporter. And at the time, of course, I was a TV reporter, and I had been a federal prosecutor, and I'd worked with many female FBI agents, and of course, they were the triple threat. And I just remember that they became so real, these characters, that I just mentioned that my daughter's birthday today, she's 23 now today. But at the end of the series, it was a very successful series, but it finally had to come to an end. And at the end of the series, I killed off the television reporter.
What?
And my daughter would not speak to me for a week. You killed Cassidy? I hate you, Mom. I hate you.
Spoiler alert, spoiler alert. Do you think that was, psychological, metaphorical of your growth into being in another role, or am I just making this up like crazy?
Oh, well, okay, but then in a later series, The Newsmakers, I have Erica, and she is a TV reporter, and she is, for 3 books, she's very much alive, and she's the protagonist.
All right, great. So you're,
And
so
I swear to God, in the first book, Newsmakers, she talks about fake news before fake news was, you know, I'm not saying I coined fake news, but she talks about the idea of a news corporation making up the news before people knew what fake news was.
Well, anyone who's been a journalist, it's crossed their mind that at some level you could make something up. And this is, you know, this is just such a part of my life, is talking about how we don't make stuff up. You know, we just,
Right.
we don't make stuff up. And that's just, it's ridiculous to
Right.
think that an honorable, hardworking, devoted, authentic reporter, I mean, it's anathema, the idea
Right.
of making something up. But
Then you go into mystery.
I had an idea for a book a while ago about, I mean, this is years ago, about whether you could make someone famous, even if they didn't really do anything to be famous about, just sort of making people feel that they should know them. And then I thought, no, that could never happen. So another idea down the drain. Are you having, are you finding it a different experience to read these days? That it's easier to get into a book or more difficult to get into a book? And are you reading different kinds of things?
I'm very, I'm all over the place with my reading. You know, I'll read anything and everything. You know, I'll read a hiking book, right?
But I mean, are you having trouble focusing at all? I mean, I'm scraping the
Maybe a
bottom
little
of
bit,
it.
yeah.
I'm
And maybe that's a part of it. And maybe that's a part of a function right now of where we are, and of the news, and of the cycle, and of, you know, you were talking earlier about being a little kind to ourselves, you know, be kind, because we can't help but be a little bit distracted because of where we are in the world. And we are, you know, marching along with everybody else in the world, we as writers. And we as writers probably are a little as sensitive or more than most people as to, you know, just to things. I mean, writers are sensitive. That's why we
right. As a writer, I mean, reading is a very solitary occupation. Writing is a very solitary occupation. But being a reporter is completely the opposite. So,
Right.
in some ways, those of us who are writers have had a little less difficulty
Right.
having to be by ourselves,
Because we're
because
used to
we are
that.
by ourselves every day, but
Right.
it's a different by ourselves. And I'm finding I'm having a little bit of a different reading experience too. And you know what seems to be is that if a book is really good, then I am captivated by it. Then I am able to be immersed in it. But something that, and I was by the Unabomber, I've got to tell you, this is just such a sweet mix of reality and storytelling, sort of an in cold blood kind of, but nonfiction story. I mean, you have to. I mean, just let me say now that I'm jumping around, but this is what made us terrified to open the mail. You know,
Yes. Oh,
um,
absolutely. This, it's funny. It's a little bit ironic now that we're terrified of opening the mail for a very different reason. That we need to put our mail aside for 3 days, because we're scared of getting, getting COVID and getting a virus. Back for 20 years, people were afraid of opening the mail because there very well could be a bomb.
exactly.
And yeah, I mean, just in your regular mail, because that's what this guy did. He
I mean,
would
you
take,
tell the story. You tell the story in the book about one of the victims who gets a weird package in the mail
yeah,
and thinks, "Oh, that's weird," and then he opens it a little more and thinks, "Oh, that's weird," and then
weird.
opens it a little more. And I'm thinking, "Don't open."
Don't. It's like when you see somebody going into, in the movies, like start going into a dark room and like, okay, I'll just keep going, and you're screaming at the screen, don't do it. But
And
or
you
somebody gets a
portray
book
that.
in the mail. Oh, isn't this nice with a little note? Oh, I'll open this book. I'll open the book. Bam, and there's a bomb in there.
And you portray that so captivatingly. Are you working on something else now? I mean, I know you're on tour. What are your plans? What are you doing?
Of
Where are you
course,
going
I'm working on
virtually?
something else. Of course, I
You're
am.
not going to tell us.
But of course, I'm not going to tell you. No, I'm working on the next book in the hunting series. It's a 3-book series. I'm working on the 3rd book, and I'll tell you that there are a lot of, as you know, in your work, there are a lot of bad guys out there and a lot of bad people you could focus on. But with Charles Manson, I focused on him because yes, the deed was bad, it was horrible, but more of the social relevance that even today we talk about it. I was very interested in why did those women follow him? What was the cult relevance? What was the psychology even now? Think that Nexium cult that was just prosecuted last year, it's still relevant. These cults, why, so I was very interested in the social relevance even today. That's how I started with the Unabomber as well. Social relevance today to something that happened in the past. Believe you me, this figure, it, him, her, that I'm focusing on now and researching, because fortunately, a lot of my work takes research, and I can do that from a computer.
How does that affect you personally when you're filling your head with that sort of?
Yeah, it helps to have been a federal prosecutor, so I've seen a lot of bad stuff already, and I've already had that, ability to, compartmentalize, I guess is the best word. It's not that it doesn't affect me, it does. But I've gotten to be analytical about things, and I also know that it's in the past and what the end result was. So and also do it I really look to greater goal here. I want to analyze so that I can write something that will be a piece of historical work that'll be interesting, thriller-esque, entertain, and also really informed, so that we can move forward and not make those mistakes again, and see how we learn from that past history.
And it's a legacy that you can give to history,
Yeah,
something
yeah.
that you worked
My
on,
little
you
tiny
produced.
piece.
And there's your, and there's, let me ask you as a final question. You said that your daughter turned 23 today. That's so wonderful. What would you, looking back, what would you tell 23-year-old Lis?
Oh my gosh. Follow your bliss. Always follow your bliss. Joseph Campbell said that. always follow your bliss. I mean, never let go of that. Always be kind to people along the way, but always follow your bliss and always follow your heart. A young woman who was trying to make a decision about a job, a daughter of a friend of mine wrote me a long email yesterday, and she was weighing different options. And I kind of wrote her back that I said, you've got these wonderful options. You're very lucky. But at the end, you know, what's in your heart? Where can you do the most good? Follow your bliss. And she wrote me back a very kind note.
I mean, I think it's interesting, the world now. I had an intern, a journalism intern a couple of years ago, and she was fabulous and she was beautiful and she was graduating and she was smart and, you know, a go-getter and such an enterprising person. And she was terrified. She was terrified of the world. And I said, you know, go be in this and explore. I said, every door will be open to you. And she said, that's what worries me. Isn't that so cute? Because she couldn't decide. And I think whether it's a real door, we can't go out the door as much.
No, not now. Right.
Go out the door of our imaginations and our intellect and our research and our, you know, our curiosity.
Yes.
That will never be closed.
That'll never be taken away. And look at how Mighty Blaze saw that and is bringing us together. We're not shut off. Look at us right now. Right now, we're showing that we're not shut off. This community that we're together on right now, just by opening up our computers and opening up our hearts and talking to each other right now, we're showing that we're optimistic. By showing up, we're showing we're optimistic.
I put on perfume today, and then I thought, why am I
Look at you though. Look at you.
Because I'm alive and because
I brushed my hair today and my teeth. And you wouldn't have been able to tell if I brushed my teeth. Well, you could have, I guess, if I like the kale from my smoothie would have showed. But seriously, I mean, you know.
Yeah, and I love amazing. I love seeing your smile, and I love that you're here today, and I love that A Mighty Blaze invited us both. Congratulations on your
congratulations to you and the new book that you've got coming out, which I've got right here.
Oh my goodness, Lis.
I don't have it right here, but I've got
I have it.
You have it. There you go. The 1st July.
1st July comes out in August.
Comes out in August.
The Murder List is out right now, nominated for the Agatha and the Mary Higgins Clark Award. So that's great. Lis, you are such a rock star. Thank you so much.
Hank, you're right back at you, baby. Right back at you. Rock star, rock star.
You both are so sensational. I can't thank you enough for being here. We at A Mighty Blaze are just thrilled to have you. This was a wonderful, uplifting, beautiful conversation. Everything you said about seeking the positive in things and looking for justice in difficult situations, the way you approach analytical situations. This is a difficult time for everyone. And I think that listening to you two really helped me personally to think about how I look at this and how I frame this and how I approach this in an analytical, inquisitive mindset, and how can I make this situation better? How can I contribute positively? So thank you both very, very much. And I want to remind everybody who's watching to please, we are going to attach links to Lis Wiehl's website and Instagram and Twitter, and buy links to where you can buy her new book. Please go and follow them. And also Hank Phillippi Ryan, we are going to be including the same for her website, her Twitter, her Facebook, everything, as well as buy links to their books. I know both of these ladies have hinted that their books, some of them are on sale. So I know a lot of us are going through financial difficulties at the moment. I know it's tough to think about luxuries, but it's so important to feed your brain, feed your mind, feed your imagination. And anything I think that can provide an escape right now is worth looking into and worth pursuing. So please take a look at their offerings online. And thank you so much, ladies. Again, we truly appreciate it. You are both incredible. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Loved it.
We're going to sign off now. Everyone have a wonderful day, and we'll see you next Thursday.
Thank you.